when you make so much money so quickly, your mind kind of changes to the level of possibilities you have. It wouldn't be uncommon for me to just like go through 2 or 3 weeks worth of work in a single day. I'm probably not going to be alive long enough, even if I live for 130 years.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Millionaire's Journey. My today's guest is Owen McGregor. Owen started his entrepreneurial journey together with his friend by founding a company that breeds and sells fish in Australia. After that, he started traveling Europe and created a second company called Naturelead. Naturelead sells sugarcane straws to restaurants and the hospitality sector in general. In this episode, we won't only talk about his companies, but his own ambitions, what he wants to achieve in life, and why he plans to live until he is a minimum of 120 years old. Currently, Owen is 28 years old. Enjoy this episode. Hey Owen, welcome to the podcast, The Millionaire's Journey. To be honest, I am really excited about this because you actually are the first person that I meet that is planning to live until he or she is 120 years old, but also has everything mapped out until then. Just to explain to the listeners real quick, on our pre-podcast call, Owen showed me how he has his goals and different parts of his life written down, and they go so far until he's around 120 years old. So my question is to you, Owen, why do you do that, and what inspired you to do that in the first place? Because it does seem pretty crazy to what I call like regular people like me.
All right, so I would say I'll preface this for starters. It comes down to the fact that roughly around about 2019, I had this kind of a bit of awakening kind of scenario. Like I kind of started doing these kind of like monthly journal things. I've never really had much impetus to kind of do something for myself. Like everything was kind of, I lived somewhat a very cushy kind of lifestyle for quite some time. And when COVID happened and there was all these things occurring, I had a bit of a morphosis kind of change on how I viewed the world and specifically how I view myself. And like I had all these changes, all these small little opinions of myself and how I viewed the world that was building up all the way since I was like 7 years old. And it's came to a point where it kind of snapped, and then I started it got into this whole kind of like self-improvement kind of thing. But really, what broke the camel's back for me was around about 2022. Well, I would say it happened a little bit beforehand, but it's like a cascading effect. In 2021, I made like my first $250,000, and when that happened, someone needs to kind of understand when you make so much money so quickly, your mind kind of changes to the level of possibilities you have. And imagine that you've been told your entire life that, you're going to go and get education, then you're going to go and find a job, you're going to save some amount of money, put it into investment portfolio, put in your retirement account, work until you retire, and then you get to live at the twilight of years. And then now let's say you flip that on your head and say, okay, in a matter of a couple of months, you just made essentially what you would have made in 5 years normally. And it was not by a traditional means. So that kind of changes you. Oh, wait, there's a lot more opportunities out there. And that changes who you are. And then what ended up happening was when I started kind of exploring the opportunities of what I could actually be doing, that's when I met my current mentor. And the man has done amazing things. And when I met this person, and I had a couple of talks talked with him, especially when I found more about his backstory, I found that he worked on a few projects, specifically in the crypto space, that are household names. And when I found out about this, I was like, oh my dear God, this is like meeting Satoshi Nakamoto, essentially, type of individual. That's what we're talking about right now. And since then, we've always been going back and forth talking about things. And it was like month after month after month, meeting, chat after chat after chat. He would just break every single pre-election belief or a philosophy I ever had beforehand, until it was a complete blank slate. And that just well, ruined me mentally. So now there is this like, okay, we're in a completely new position, and now I'm thinking like what there needs to be needs to be done. Now the few things that he didn't break was made down that came down to self liberty, private property, and there's a right to kind of like self determination and like the right to secession and freedom of association. And these are things I've always held very strongly, even since I was like 7 years old. And that ended up coming into this situation where I've realized there is ultimately one thing that humanity absolutely needs above all things. And it's like, all right, cool. How do we do it? Well, for starters, you need to be charismatic as hell. You need to be a leader that is worth being followed. You need to be a philosopher king, meaning you essentially have to be polymath, which is one of the reasons why I spend so much time kind of like learning and teaching myself and trying to be a like extraordinary autodidact. But ultimately, the last one is you have to be a person of means. So, like, why am I trying to collect all this wealth? It's ultimately to build up all this stuff into one place, to become a natural lead, to formulate a pillar society, because that's ultimately what humanity needs to go forward. So, if I was to answer you or like simplify everything I just said, the reason why I want to live so long is because I want to see this come to fruition. And I'm already recognizing as I stand here, I'm probably not going to be alive long enough. Even if I live for 130 years, I'm not going to see it. We can lay the foundations for it, but I'm not going to see it.
What exactly is a pillar society?
Okay, so a pillar society is the acronym for a private law society. The concept of private law society is a society above all else, as the name implies, is where the means of arbitration and law enforcement and all means of governance is privatized. So we're no longer talking like it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like you have a government. No, governance. You need to think, instead of a singular monolithic entity, you break it into arbitrary competing firms. And the only two things that you need to kind of maximize for is obviously the freedom of trade, freedom of association, and the right to private property above all else. And if you
are you talking about like a country that lives by those means, or like the whole world?
Essentially, what we're talking about is the foundational creation of a brand new type of country.
And when you say everything's privatized, like also security would be run by companies.
Yeah, competing firms.
Okay, why would you think that is beneficial?
This we could go on a whole talk about this. We could have a 6-hour conversation exactly on the subject alone. But if I was to bring it down to a few key kind of statements to bring to you, it would be one: all entity, Murray Rothbard put this quite succinctly. All entities, that of man and animal, and organization, government, for profit and for non-profit, have two mandates of their existence. One, to survive, as living is preferable to being dead. And the second one is to maximize, to either spread your genes as far as you can. As such, to have kids is literally to propagate, expand, extend your life, to have more of you in existence. To a company is to have more profits, to have more of a market share. To a government, to have more citizens, a larger tax base, to be able to reap more land and this goods and services from it. All entities are essentially governed by these two mandates. We know that we can never trust a single monolithic monopoly of ultimate decision making and violence, which is what a state is, to be able to do what's right in your own interest. That's the reason why you need decentralization, and a private law society brings about decentralization of the apparatuses allow for these things to occur. Because the beauty of what we have with capitalism is we're harnessing greed and those two self-serving kind of natures to survive and to maximize, which is what greed is, and using in the most productive means. If there is no impetus to do so, there's no reason to lower prices and to improve service, efficiency market hypothesis, to equalize. But if there, like when you don't have that, you have market distortion. You never get the true value of things because there's no impetus to improve on quality and improve on price. So you're always going to see taxes going up and services going down because there's no need to. Like it's forced. So that's the kind of the main kind of issue. And if I was to give you another kind of piece to it, governments as we recognize it today is actually in the context of human history as we know it is a relatively very new concept. And as such, right now, it's seen very little innovation. It's one of the largest sectors by employment and GDP around the world, the largest sector, industry. And it has the least amount of innovation of all the industries.
So what you're saying would be that if the security of a country wouldn't be like the police is right now, they would actually compete and evolve better, or what?
Well, let's say logically, what do you think is going to bring about better service and price? One, like a policing force who knows they're always going to get the paycheck on time. And, because they know that the people that they serve don't have a choice but to pay it, or two competing or three or five competing firms who basically have to compete for their for their money. Because let's say you don't get there on time. Let's say you don't do a good service or you don't charge a good price. Well, people are just going, it's just like any service provider. If you have I guess you have a phone with you, you have an ISP kind of provider and stuff like that. What happens if your ISP provider, let's say, halves your internet speed or jacks up the price by double? What do? You're going to go to another ISP.
But what I think I definitely see the point there, and I think it's really interesting as well to all the listeners to actually start thinking about it, because I guess you have those ideas. They come from you talking to your mentor as well, right?
Yes.
So like it was for you back then, this is actually a new way of thinking for me right now and for everyone listening, which is really interesting.
We went into talk about making the journey to making $1 million, and we went into whole kind of philosopher kind of position of the nature of governance.
yeah, true. But I have one question there before we move on. Don't you think it could be a problem if one company becomes so large that there are no real competitors? So especially in a security.
I love this question. I absolutely love it. So this is the thing I hear all the time is this idea of monopolization. The funny thing is, if you actually look throughout history, there is no such thing as a natural monopoly. We understand the term monopoly, but you have to define, are we talking about natural or unnatural? Natural means it came from natural market forces. Unnatural, it was actually created by a state. Nearly every single time, I looked through the history books on this, and my mentor even pointed this out, there is not a single example of a monopoly forming in the market that was not unnatural. There's always been by unnatural means, meaning that a state created it, not the other way around. And even logically, if we break down the systematic process of how markets work from an Austrian economic theory, it also makes no sense why a natural monopoly would ever form. Let me give you this proposed question. Let's say I get somewhat large enough and I want to take total market share. So let's say that I will do predatory pricing and I will kill the market. I will use my economies of scale to sell everything at a price below anything that anyone else can sell it at, and even turn a profit so they all go bankrupt. So I'm the last person standing. Right. Awesome. I do that. Now I'm the last person. Now I jack up the price because that's the whole goal, right? The whole goal of not making money for a long time is to eventually make more money. Blitzkrieg. This is like what Uber and all these now you're understanding it. This is the Silicon Valley model, the Blitzkrieg kind of concept of expansion for a company. So we want to be able to take over a market share, be the biggest dog, essentially create this soft monopoly type position, and then we jack up the prices and make a lot of money. However, think of it from a logical standpoint. If you, let's say, took over a massive market at low prices, then jack up the prices. The thing is, there's always a differential between what it costs you to fulfill it and the cost that you can sell it at. And if you can sell something at a higher price, the profit between the profit, which is the difference between the cost of fulfillment and the cost that you can charge for it, is a signal to tell you that there's pent up market demand, that there's opportunity here. So if you let's say, are a monopoly, you make very little for a long time to kill everyone, then you jack up the price and make all this money. Why would any entrepreneur worth their salt not look at that and say, hey, they're making a lot of money? And considering with the prefixation, there's no barriers to market to allow them. So no regulatory kind of restrictions we're talking about here, saying that they can't do it.
So a lot of people start the company.
They will start a company and compete with them, and then they have to do the whole process again. So so who does that benefit? Well, the customer. If they're selling a product or service at a low price, aren't you benefiting the customer?
It might not benefit the customer for a short term.
Oh, no, it will benefit for them short term while they're doing the predatory pricing because they're getting a service below cost.
Then it'll go by the phase and then new companies start and have it cheaper
then they'll
again.
jack up the price.
Okay.
New competition will come in, compete with them, and then and all the customers will jump ship from the expensive service to the small services, and then they've gone back to square one. It's always a risky endeavor. Every company that's ever attempted this throughout history has gone through the cycle. They'll try and push things down, they gain market share, they jack things up, they lose market share. It's a perfect equilibrium point.
To be honest, it's the best explanation I've ever heard to that question. Really, really, it is. I want to ask you something. You sent me a screenshot of your folders where you plan out your life or journal your life. And I have in front of me, and it says the one folder is called the 100-year plan. And then it says is a life purpose statement. Then it says the 10-year plan is a vision and long-term planning document. The yearly journal is an audit and short-term planning document. The monthly journal is a reflective commentary record. And the weekly journal is a historical record. Can you walk me through the different folders or documents and tell me? Also, I'm a bit confused why you have so many. It sounds like massive workloads to always keep those things updated. So could you just walk me through them and what that means to you?
Right, awesome. So let us stress the back end of that. I don't really see it as a lot of work or effort. I know a lot of people who do for example, daily journaling. They'll do a daily a journal entry every single day. I find that rather exhausting, to be honest. And it's so what I've done with the system that you're describing there is I've broken down my journal into segments. So, and it's on a time scale, and the time scale reflects its purpose. So, for example, the weekly journal one is only covers 1 week. So I make one of those files every single week. And it's actually really easy to make one of them. What I do for it is I'll simply, it's a bit almost doing a software log where I'll do bullet point, I did this action, and I might make a sub bullet point where I might add in a comment or the result of that action, for example.
Do you do this at the end of each week, or
I do this live throughout the week? So it's
okay.
So it's if I go out and let's say do an errand and do something, I might come back and because I always have my computer on, so I'll just walk past the computer and just went and picked up milk, for example.
So every document is 1 week. Like if you had a physical journal, every page is one.
Specifically for the weekly journal. A weekly journal is a simple bullet point list of actions. The reason why it says historical is because historical is as the name implies, is a historical record of things.
You
And
did.
specifically, it's a record of action. So
Yeah.
the
Okay.
only reason why I log that, because I found it very useful to, let's say, go back and let's say, oh, what was I doing 2 weeks ago? Or like, let's say a month ago. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if I asked you, what were you doing exactly 60 days ago? I can tell you exactly what I was doing 60 days ago because of that
Yeah.
log. I can tell you exactly what happened during that day. And so that's the only reason why I have it. And it also helps with the second layer to it, which is the monthly journal. The monthly journal is a reflective commentary. This is actually a proper journal. Because what I described there is probably not really a journal. It's just a list of things I did. The actual kind of meat and potatoes is those monthly journals, the reflective pieces, which is like, and the reason why I have them weeklies is just so I can jog my memory, because I only make those monthly journal entries at the end of each month. So
Okay, so the weekly is during the week, every time you do something, but the monthly is actually just once a month at the
once a
end of the
month.
month. And then you go through the
And
weekly journal
the
and
yearly is done only once a year. The decade is only done
oh,
once a decade. The monthly, I would basically take the list log of actions and the thoughts I've compiled over those weeks for the month. And
okay.
what I'll do is I will use a reflective writing style. So a reflective writing style uses the DEP style of writing, which is basically you want to describe what you did, you want to interpret what you did, then you want to essentially analyze what you did, and the last one is you want to project forward what can be done.
Okay.
So basically, you just simply say, like, I did this thing. Then you interpret it, which is more how do I feel about it, or why is my reasoning for it? Like, I think, or I felt like, or stuff like that. It's more centered around you and how you're interpreting it. And then the evaluation is like, okay, well, the reason why I went out to open up a new bank account was because I wanted a better like interest rate. And then you evaluate, okay, did you end up finding out that was the best deal? Did you come across some problems while you did it and so forth? And then like the projecting forward part is, hey, if I'm going to look into new bank accounts to open in the future, what would I do differently?
Okay. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then the yearly journal is what?
A yearly journal is an audit. So the thing is, you make essentially goals, like what you want to be doing. Like, how do you know that what you want to be doing that year? And usually, like the yearly one is kind of an audit of all these little goals and objectives that you're trying to achieve, like hit throughout the year. And you're just basically, okay, let me audit. Did I hit these goals? If I didn't, or if I did, why did I, why was I able to do it? And could I replicate it? If I didn't do it, what was the problem? Where did I get stuck? How could I avoid that in the future? And then once that's all kind of said and done, you want to plan out for what should be the goals and objectives for the next year.
And they depend on the 10-year plan.
Yeah, and this all comes down from the 10-year plan, which is, and I love this because this comes from Debbie Newman. I only did this because of her kind of recommendation. And Debbie Newman is she's this brilliant kind of designer. She has a beautiful track record of doing stuff, and she had this like beautiful kind of idea of the what's known as the 10-year plan, and I just call it the decade plan or the decade vision, because it's a visionary statement. Unlike any other document, basically there's two parts to it, and the first part is the most important one. Basically, what you want to do is envision and like imagine your life, like in a day or in a week or stuff like that. Like just visualize intense detail what would be your ideal life would be like in 10 years if you knew that you cannot fail.
Yeah, wow.
And
Okay.
then what you do is once you've created that intense vision of it. So, like, for example, if I was to kind of give you some kind of ideas to it, because, like, okay, so you have the, like, you essentially have like the vision or statement, and then there's the plan to it. But if I was to give you, let's say, some questions for it, like, so when you create that vision, you want to be kind of like asking questions of like, what does your whole day look like from morning to night, like for each week? Where do you live? What kind of home are you living in? Are you living in a apartment, a cabin out in the woods? Is it just your only home? Do you have multiple? Who are you living with? What do you like about them? Do you have any pets, children? What are you doing? Are you traveling anywhere? How often do you travel? How do you get there? And what are you doing there? Do you have a car, other vehicles, a jet? So, like, you're asking yourself these questions. And then once you've done that visualization, you kind of start seeing there's some over level themes, some objectives you're trying to do. And when you recognize these objectives, that's the reason why you want to put together the plan. The plan part of it is you're defining a long term goal. It's like the big picture kind of like goal from the vision that you're trying to do. It's generally vague and grand. And that's perfectly fine as long as you can break it down into small steps. So once you can break it down into small steps, you want to actually research and understand what do you actually need to do to achieve this thing. If I want to be a senior data scientist, what do I need to do to achieve that? So, okay, if I want, like, let's say I don't have any background, I have no business to be in data science, but I'm envisioning myself, I'm a senior data scientist at a large company in 10 years. Okay, what does a senior, what does a senior data scientist do actually? Okay, let me go and research that, work out what are the skills, what are the things that is required and needed. And then what you start doing is you outline, basically, you work backwards, you do backwards goals. And obviously, they have to be smart goals and be realistic, actionable kind of like time frame that you operate with. But you essentially work backwards from the large goal. Backwards is like, okay, to be a senior, data scientist, you need to have been at least a data scientist. And then, okay, how do you get to a data scientist? Well, probably an entry level job at some point. That you probably have gone and done some projects. Is like a formal education required, or can I have done something else personal? Is these skills are regularly available online, or can I get a mentor or access to some resources, stuff like that? And you basically, as long as you can work backwards from the grand long-term goal is the vague goal and make it crystal sharp until you find exactly the very first step for right now that you can do, then you have your plan. And then basically, and then obviously, like, you probably have got multiple goals. So you prioritize what would make the most sense. Generally, I like consolidating goals into one area because, again, I don't do things unless I can, like, kill two birds with one stone at the minimum. So maybe even using a goal pyramid to, like, prioritize or consolidate goals together so you're achieving two things at once if you can. And then if you want to get really paranoid, because as I already prefaced, it's envision your life if you cannot fail. Well, if we're talking over a time span of 10 years, things can change drastically. And it was Bill Gates, who was very famous for saying this. People overestimate what they can do in a year, but completely underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And when this is where I would probably preface the importance of creating like contingencies goals. If I can't do X, what would I do instead of this? So you could probably make contingent goals onto it, and there's many different ways that you can do it. Maybe even using pestle planning. Let's say that a part of your goal is like a long-term goal is very hinging on the economy. For example, let's say you're trying to build a large portfolio to live off your portfolio. Well, what happens if the market tanks, for example, during that time frame or near the end of your objective is? Okay, well, that's the economic part of pestle, for example, that probably should be accounted for.
That's really interesting. And then the 100-year plan is basically what we talked about before.
It's a living document. You don't make multiple of them. You only have one. It's a living document that you constantly update as you discover more about yourself.
Oh, okay. So you don't write it just once, but you always keep updating it if something adds up and comes true.
Exactly. As you learn more about yourself of what you're trying to do. So, for example, as we talked about at the beginning, why I'm trying to live so long, my life purpose statement has a few very key value points. So, you know how like companies will have a mission statement. A concept I like to throw around is the idea of the personal mission statement. So, for example, everyone knows like Elon Musk, for example, but some people may know about this, some people don't know about this. But he has a personal mission statement, and it's very simple. Does this action get us closer to putting man on Mars? If it is no, then he doesn't do it. If it does, then he's just going to do it. So that's like, it's a top level filter to like filter through your stuff. And you could probably, the reason why like having a 100-year plan, for example, is a living document is because you're essentially putting together a personal mission statement. It's a living document that you're updating and you're making actually discovering more about yourself. And you're essentially developing your life purpose, your mission statement in that. And because you understand your life purpose, this mission statement is essentially the filter for all your actions. There should be nothing more than you should know. You should be able to recite in your sleep. Because again, when you're going through any decision-making point, it should be your first order principle.
And how would you say, are you progressing on your journey right now?
I am constantly amazed on where I'm at right now. I don't even recognize my previous self from 5 years ago at this point in time. I'm like a completely different person. I sold up everything. I left Australia, went completely cold turkey and started backpacking essentially around the world. And coming up quite shortly in the next 2 months is going to be my 2-year anniversary of leaving Australia and becoming a nomad. So if we're cutting off the success metric to having the freedom to travel, speak to anyone, and enjoy life to its fullest, I would say that I've already kind of achieved it. But obviously, that's not the end objective. The end objective is much grander, much larger than myself, and right now to achieve that, there's a few things I need to kind of do. So, for example, I'm still finishing off a uni course. This is more of a backup plan than anything else. And what I'm really hinging myself on right now is currently the creation of Nature Lead. This is the second company that I've kind of poured effort into. The first one was I took a lot of my initial funds from my first endeavor. When I made the first quarter meal, and I poured that into two things. I just made a little portfolio for myself to sustain myself, to do all this travel. And
yeah, just fill in the viewers real quick. How did you make your first $250,000? What did you do with it? Why did you create Nature Lead?
Yeah, so the company before Nature Lead was Niska Aquatics. So, like Niska Aquatics is still around. It's just a slow order biz. It's a aquaculture kind of company. So there's quite a bit of a history behind the thesis behind that one. It was back in 2008, 2009, Australia banned the importation of live like animals, fish, for example, crustaceans. And that basically killed the hobbyist kind of industry for like exotic fish and crustaceans and stuff like that for hobbyists who liked pet fish and stuff like that. And the problem is like stuff like Neocadinian or I'm definitely pronouncing the name wrong. My friend, my friend is the fish expert. He's spent the 15 years in the industry, not me. like, it was pointed out, it's like, yeah, it's like the people who already had it inside of the country before the ban happened just ended up holding onto the stock, and they basically just monopolized the market and would only, like, they'll essentially only sell the shittest stock that they could produce at jacked up prices. And all the aquariums who was reselling them on to the general market who want to get into the hobby would essentially be paying ridiculous prices for some of these shrimp, and it's just like and these other exotic fish, and it was
So you and your partner bred those fish?
Yeah, so what we did was we bit the bullet. He already had a lot of good connections with people who already had the stock. If it was anyone,
which is important because Australia, like you said, they banned the import of the livestock. So you only had what was already in the country to work with.
Yes, so you only who had it in the country to begin with had it, unless you want to smuggle in. And now I'm not going to break any laws, so I'm not going to suggest doing that. But obviously some people just do it anyway because they don't want to pay the ridiculous prices, and just risking it is worthwhile to them. But for every other person, it's like, all right, cool, we have to work out something. Like, my friend had the connections, I had some money to throw around, and what we decided to do was buy up a lot of colonies of very exotic kind of like crustaceans, fighting fish, other exotic fish and stuff like that. And we started our own breeding operation. And basically that just chugs away in the background. He takes care of it. And, like when we have stock in hand, he just sells it to the local aquariums. And the goal is, I make no money from it. All the money goes back into buying more equipment. And just getting more and more exotic stuff, and just like
good for long-term planning.
Yeah. I'm not going to see a dime from that business in a long time. There were some promises made, and I'm certainly not too happy about like the progress of it. But we have to understand it's a hobby business. I'm not too upset about it. He's a good mate, and yeah.
Why did you leave it then, and then actually traveled to Europe and left Australia behind?
Yes. Well, again, I left Australia because of like the whole COVID situation. I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and it's like, I asked myself the question, is this the country I want to live in long term? And the answer was no. I couldn't find a single reason why I want to live in this country. While I was born there, it doesn't mean that I have to stay there. I've never felt myself as Australian, even growing there. I'm a Scotsman through and through. Like I've got the most Scottish name in existence, Owen Robin McGregor. Like I am a Klansman. I shouldn't be in this country. I'm burning up every summer. I hate the summer there. So it's like, there's no reason there. And when they start doing COVID vaccination camps in the Northern Territory because you wouldn't take the vaccine, I was like, no, thank you.
So you left Australia, started to study, started Nurture Lead, another business. Yeah, how did you finance all that?
Yeah, so that came when I got off from my diploma in software development and digital active design. I jumped back at when I got out of high school, I went directly into the workforce for a year. Then I left to do a diploma in software development and digital active design. And as soon as I finished that, I went back into the workforce, the old employer that I did with, and did nearly 3 years working in a factory, kind of like a position in quality assurance and like general labor. And it was good pay. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand. And this is actually like a little piece of advice to kind of all the young guys out there. While you're young, fit, and spry, get the shittiest fucking job in existence because, dear fucking Lord, it pays well. Let me give you an example. I have a friend called Dave. He works in a yogurt packing factory. And basically, he works specifically in the department that packs it for night delivery in a fridge-rated environment. Now, here's the thing. Refrigerated environment is what's known as a hazard environment, so you get hazard pay. He does the night shift, so he gets like overnight pay, and if hard labor job already pays pretty well. The dude makes like $60, $70 an hour doing something that requires like no kind of like mental thought or effort. or like a high-end degree. Like, again, you could have like flunked high school and you can be making 60 bucks an hour. And it's not just a unique situation. Even my mentor, for example, he was telling about his young years. He used to work in a shrimping factory. He's in software. He runs a software company now. But like his first job was in a shrimp packing factory, and he was making 60 euros an hour doing that. So if you can, go and do that because it makes a lot of money. And that's something I did very similar. I worked in a factory. I was making, it was not an obscene amount of money, but I basically got a lot of side benefits to it. It was like $33 an hour. And like one of the advantages of why I did that one is because I get to put a headset on, listen to audiobooks, like all different types of like fiction, non-fiction kind of stuff, and I'll just chew through books. So it wasn't really for the pay for me. It was really a ability to just, hey, my hands will be doing something, but my head is in Narnia, for example. And so I was earning while I'm learning or learning. So like from doing that for a period of time, I saved up like a portfolio of like $15,000. And then 2021 came around. Now, when I was doing that software diploma, like a diploma course, it was around about 2017. And when I did that, this is like I already knew about Bitcoin before 2017. It was roughly around 2016, 2015. I heard about it. And I kind of knew that, like, yeah, it was a kind of a thing that people kind of just use it on the dark web a little bit, but like there was a general kind of idea. I kind of brushed it off, like it seemed kind of loopy in the beginning, and then like 2017 ran around, and there was a lot of hype around it. It was taking off, and I did decide to buy up a few Bitcoins back then, and I rode the kind of the train. Didn't get anywhere near the top. I just sold way too soon. On it, but it was a good little kind of chunk there. I ended up using a lot of the money there to buy myself a VR headset later on.
Cool, but that's where you made the 250K, right?
No. The 250K was from the fact in 2021, I saw the same thing happening again. And I was like, I remember back in 2017 how it already played out.
Oh, so you made what, like 20K the first time, or what?
No, I made like I didn't have a lot of money back then. Again, I was a teenager, so like I think I made like $4,000.
Okay, cool.
It was not a lot. And when that happened, like again, and I blew it all on alcohol and a VR headset.
Typical teenager thing.
So what ended up happening was that. When the whole crypto craze came back around in 2021, then what ended up happening was, it's like, oh, this is happening again. And I just kind of like, to be honest, what do I have to lose? Like, 15, like I was already deciding, I'm going to go back into university. I'm going to go and get my credential. Like I needed to get a bachelor's in a finance-related course before I can go and get my CFA and other qualifications because it's a prerequisite to do it. So it's like, look, I'm not going to be doing this job forever. It took me a year to save up 15 grand. So I'm not too really concerned to do that. So I just basically liquidated my whole portfolio, 15 grand of it. Dumped it all into kind of crypto, leveraged it to X, so it was about 30,000. I know, degenerate behavior, won't recommend it. But like for me at the time, it was just like 15 grand. I don't really care. It's like that was 1 year of my life at the time, and I'm going back to university, and like the next job I'm going to get, I would make that probably in like 3 months. So like, it didn't really matter much if that was to occur. So my risk profile was very low. I would be in the high aggressive, risk profile territory. So it's like, I don't have anything to lose. I don't care. So I just threw it in there. And that was right there at the beginning of 2021. And as we already saw, it just went to the fucking moon. So it went up and it popped up and made now it wasn't just Bitcoin. It was like I would use, like how I structured it was a bit like how I would normally structure a portfolio between like equities, bonds, and kind of like REITs, for example. But in this instance, I would consider Bitcoin the cash in the situation and the altcoins to be the actual equities. You essentially put into like the altcoins to grow it, and you would push back into the Bitcoin to essentially for cash. Because if Bitcoin contracts, altcoins contract much more than Bitcoin does. But so it's a bit like bonds and equities and that parts, and I already knew that kind of metric. So it's like, yeah, it's still very volatile. Not going to recommend it. It's still dumb like what I did back then, but it's like again that was me in my situation, a very unique situation, and yeah, just the general thesis was all right. Let me use Bitcoin as the cash in the situation. Let me pick like I'm not going to throw into like top 100 coins. I would basically just stay in the top 10 coin range. That's it. And what I'll do is just like, all right, let me just pick out like a portfolio of altcoins, use Bitcoin as the cash kind of reserve. And what I'll do is I'll just alternate between allocating more to Bitcoin if I feel like we're getting into a risky territory, and if I feel like like the risk off, if we're in a more risk off environment, like for example, let's say we just had a contraction, then I'll allocate more to the altcoins to capture potential growth. And that just like, and remember, this thing was only 2x. Like some people leverage it much more. I only did 2x because I wanted to know, okay, if I lost half the portfolio, like then I get liquidated. And crypto is really volatile already, so you need to have that margin to work with. So yeah, I'm leaving stuff on the table, but you don't want to get killed before the game gets started. So what ended up happening was it's like, yeah, it popped up and it went up to like 120, 130. It contracted. Then it went up to like 240, 230, something in that territory. It had a massive contraction, and I got really worried. And then it went back up, went way past the 250 range, and then it contracted again. And then it was like, oh fuck. And then it popped up again. It nearly got to that territory, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. Everything like economically wise, because I like more looking at macroeconomic effects, not just to the crypto space, but like just what the economy is doing as a whole. It's always been a thing. I've always been very interested in markets and how the economy works. And it's just like, all right, where is this money coming from for crypto to do its shit? And if the market is not doing well, that's not going to do well either. Like it's essentially like a gravitational force. If the general market's not doing well, this is not like it's going to be less favorable. And like the market or the bull run already played out for a long period of time, so it had to have come to some conclusion soonish. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to cut it out, get out of the market, and I made a nice chunk out of it. I think it was like 87,000 from that, like net of all debts and everything else. Once I cleared margin, paid off, bought some stuff that I kind of wanted, it was all kind of sorted out nice, and also returned the capital back to my portfolio. So that's what I kind of walked away in as net gain on that. So it's like, all right, that's pretty good. And basically what I did was okay, I have my money and I don't want to live in this country anymore. So I sold my car. That added some extra capital to my pool. And then I just I had my friend for Niskai Aquatics, here's your $10,000 to kind of get Niskai Aquatics going. I gave him some more money to do some extras, buy more colonies and more equipment, and then basically bought my plane ticket, put everything in a suitcase, and flew all the way to the Netherlands. And I just started traveling around Europe for the last 2 years.
What are your key learnings of traveling around Europe?
Ooh, a lot. For starters, I came Christian from it.
Oh, wow.
I like growing up. I was a atheist growing up. Then it was later on I started becoming a little bit more agnostic. But traveling around Europe made like a little too much has happened to me that was certainly too inquidential. Um, like it just seemed too by design that it occurred, and also like I met a really good friend in Poland at the time who made a very sect kind of statement of it was a really like basically he proposed me this kind of question of like believing in faith from a argumentational ethics standpoint, which is if I was to tell you in good faith that I genuinely do like, and I was asking you too, to believe in good faith of what I'm saying is also in good faith, that I believe that there's a God and you believe to me that there is a God as well in this. Can we really refute that claim? So and like that's a very simplistic form of what he kind of put, and it's been a little while since I've chatted with him. I need to go back to Warsaw. I love that country. Like I love Poland so much.
Where are you at right now?
I'm currently in Wales right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. And which countries have you been to name a few?
Okay, give me 1 second. That would be okay. When I left Australia, first it was Thailand. It was a stopping point. Then it was the UK, Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, the Czech Republic, back to the Netherlands, to Italy, to Switzerland, back to the Netherlands again. Then I went to Poland. Then I went past Denmark, back Netherlands, and now the UK again.
Are you earning any money on the way?
Yeah, here and there. Like again, I do right now just financial planning as a kind of a thing. That's how I keep things ticking along, essentially for me.
Do you do that remotely, or do you when you travel there?
So one of the good advantages of me being mobile and stuff like that is, like most people will just do it online. Again, we'll just do the reports. Like we'll spin up a call, talk about what we want to actually do, and like what the plans are and stuff like that. And then obviously I'll go and do the research, build up the plan, get them, they'll sign it, we'll do the implementation of it. And it's pretty simple. But there's been a few cases where I've actually they would be in Belgium, for example. And it's like, it's literally a 20 euro flight to me go to Belgium.
True.
So it's like,
true.
all right,
especially without a suitcase.
Yeah. So if I literally just get a backpack with a nice suit, 20 euros and a hotel room and a taxi fare, I could just go and see a client. And especially considering the average kind of like charge that like for a full action plan, for example, was like last one a charge was 1,500 for 1,500 Swiss francs for a full action plan. If you're charging me by hourly rate, it's like 220 an hour.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to pay the 20 euros for the flight and go there.
Yeah, and if you go there in person, you could take them out to a restaurant, wine, dine them, and this is something that, especially where we're
also fun, right?
Yeah, and it's very fun. I get to see people, connect with people, shake their hands, and like try new food and stuff like that. But like this is something that I would also point out, and like I think some people don't understand this, is even though we're in a very digital kind of like environment of commerce, you still can't beat face-to-face shaking people's hand type of business.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like just being able to see someone, talk to someone gets you the business. Like you wouldn't believe how many times I've closed a client just because I have been there and I've talked with them and we've had like lunch together. That's how I got in. That's how I went to Belgium, and I went to talk with Dank, and how we ended up doing work with him. And then you have when I was out in Poland, I got connected up with a really nice guy, Mikhail Brzezinski. His family is quite well connected. in the retail space there in kind of Poland. And I got invited out to their personal house where they were doing the polo game in August last year. That was quite fun.
That sounds so cool, not gonna lie. So just for the audience real quick, they might be a bit confused because this podcast is called The Millionaire's Journey, and we have been having an amazing talk so far, but we haven't actually talked about the small core thing, why you are on the podcast on the first place, which is your company Nature Lead.
Yeah.
And basically, we can argue what being a millionaire is, and we did that in the pre-podcast call. But let's just say this company is the reason why you're here, and theoretically, the plan is that in 3 to 5 years, it could make you a millionaire.
I don't really see many situations where I don't turn out to be a millionaire in 3 years, and I don't mean that like in a cocky or a bollock way. We've already spent most of this conversation talking about planning and making contingency plans.
Yeah.
And we built up the building blocks to understand, okay, if one thing doesn't work, what's the next thing?
Yeah, tell me specifically, what's your plan here? Like, what's your specific plan with this business in your next years?
So right now, like I'm finishing off the kind of university, and like that's taking a little bit more priority right now to make sure that's cleared from my tables. But you have Nature Lead. We've been hiring on people. We've been building out all the kind of the back end for the stuff. So, for example, I've been building out a lot of the ERP systems of myself. And right now, what we're trying to do with that is we've just been slowly building up kind of the sales script, how we're going to do the sales strategy. We just brought on two really cool people. So and the two very individual. Joseph, he sells very specialized equipment to neurosurgeons, and then Laurie Devine, she's worked forever in the ESG space for quite some time. Done a few really cool pieces with this women's organization for empowering women kind of entrepreneurship. She owns a US patent for walk roll design. Very strong kind of individuals, and I'm very glad that we have them on the team. And kind of like basically we've been kicked in the gonads so many times because like I started this kind of as a stealth project a long time ago. And we even talked about this like in the pre-call, kind of like, you remember when I was just kind of start talking about it, and it's just been work in the background. Yeah, I've been doing this thing. And one of the reasons why it's taken so long is because I'll do one thing, think that's the thing I need to do, and then like it's not working. I explain it, and then someone will come along and it's like, oh, you've done it wrong. And they're just like kicking the gonads. It's like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right. Okay, let me try harder next time. I fix the problem. We'll go off, and it's like, all right, I've managed to do this thing. And then someone else will come like, oh, yeah, but you did that wrong. Kicking the gonads. God damn it. All right, cool. So it's like, all right, I know nothing. Let me get the right people for it. So that's the kind of the reason why it's taking so goddamn long, and it's burnt such a large pocket, like a hole in my pocket. It's not even funny. And like, basically, again, it's the matter of, we just need to make sure that we got the right pieces right now. Right now, I'm reworking the website right now because there's a particular type of client and their needs that it needs to fulfill. And right now, the packaging is being redone because we need to be able to think about the long-term branding kind of implications of what we can actually achieve, and working with the new manufacturer as well, because we've been trying to get the costs down. Fun fact, this is going to be the first time we're going to be mentioning this. We've actually been able to decrease our cost of goods by, I think it was 29%.
Just for everyone real quick that forgot since the intro, I'll mention this in the intro, but Nature Lead sells sugarcane straws.
Yeah, sugarcane straws, wheat straws, yeah.
And competes against like the paper straws, and paper straws are shit, everyone knows it, so you want to have like good sustainable straws that are not paper straws.
So yeah, like we all know, sustainability is not going to be going away. A lot more regulations is coming out of this. Needs to be some type of strong bit of thing. I picked this is because, one, hospitality is not going anywhere. It's a constantly a consuming business. It's a product that is increasing very hard. Like, it's a very strong growing market. The average global CAGR for that market is like 6.7%, which is, amazing.
I mean, if I go to a bar, I don't want to miss out on a straw in my drink, so that's not going away.
Well, if you get a smoothie, for example, how are you going to drink that smoothie?
Yeah,
so
out of the glass, but it's not fun.
And if you want to sip on it for a while, but you can't because you've got a paper straw that goes soggy in a minute. Like, that's terrible. And again, the business model is kind of like, what's my proposition from it? It's like, hey, look, it's a thing that is always going to be needed. The metrics is pretty easy to kind of it's just a supply chain problem. How good can we make the product, how good we can make an offer, and how good we can make the supply chain and ultimately my question is, how low can we get the price? Because I'm looking for volume on that and a recurrence.
Price to sell or the price to manufacture, or both?
Both. Because if my cost goes down, I can offer for less and we can get more people.
More people can buy.
Yeah, because again, right now I'm competing with, I'm competing right now with all the other alternatives. My goal is, I need to adopt the thesis, the assumption that plastic is going to be banned one day.
Oh yeah.
There's no point in me competing with plastic.
And then your company has a lot higher value from the day it's banned.
Yeah. So we understand if the plastic goes away, that is unmet demand that has to shift to a alternative product. This is, again, supply and demand. This is what's known as this is known as the substitution effect. When when the supply of something disappears or is restricted and the demand has not been changed or fundamentally changed, it then is transferred through the substitution effect to a similar supply type, and then the demand for that supply will increase, which is, one, you have a base level market, but then you see if you're going to look at the straw market, if you look at, let's say, the plastic straw market, it's shrinking. But if you look at the general market, it's normal. But then you look at paper market, you'll see that it's increasing. Now, if you add in the the paper market and the plastic market together, it's nearly directly correlated with each other. So we can already tell that, the loss in plastic is coming out, it's going towards the paper straws. It's going to the sustainable term products. So that's where the market, the boost in the market is coming from. So the question is, how can we capture that? And only I'm looking at that is, how can I supply a better product for the same or a better price? So my thesis is, I don't need to compete with plastic. I need to compete with paper. How can I make a product that is better for a cheaper price? Or same price?
But how do you measure the price for straws? There must be a price per one straw, but it doesn't make sense. Do you measure the price per 100, per 1,000, 100,000, a million straws? Because I want to ask, what's the average price for your straws right now, and where do you want to go versus the paper straws right now? But how would you say, the average for 100,000 straws when you buy them, or how do you calculate that?
That's a really good question. So really, the per piece price of the straw is really dependent on how you're packaging it. So, for example, if you're doing, let's say, bulk orders of straws, let's say you're a wholesaler, you're buying at a proper bulk price, and probably is naked to the cost of the actual product as you possibly can get. But when you let's say go to a Whole Foods or some type of craft and supply store, or wherever, and you see one of those small packs of, let's say, 50 straws, God forbid 10 straws, let's say that they're selling you 10 straws on the thing, and they sell it to you for $5. It's just do the math on that. That is a ridiculous price that they're putting on a per straw basis. But most of that cost is going towards the packaging. It's not on the straw, it's the packaging. The packaging, I guarantee you, is 5 times the price of the straws in this instance. So that's where the price is going. And that's the kind of question you have to ask is, okay, what's the packaging? How many straws are you packaging in one package? And then that's the per piece price on that. Right now, I was planning on selling at a 3.5 US cents per piece naked price at scale to the US market.
Without packaging?
No. That would be like in our bulk packages. Like, because again, I'm trying to get.
What is a bulk package? 1 million?
A bulk package is a carton. If we're talking about the most standard 6 mil straw, non-wrapped, 21 centimeters in length, that would be about 8,000 straws in one carton.
Okay, what those 8,000 cost?
That would be for a full carton. I can't remember. I can't math right now what a full carton is. I'm just knowing a per piece basis. The sell price on that is
okay. What was the per piece? 3.5 cents.
The per piece price that, like, if we're doing on a costing basis, I was initially going to sell at a 3.2. US cents per piece at that kind of scale. However, right now, as like a lawyer is going to point it out to me, is like the US market can easily soak up more. I'm completely underselling the market on that price point, and we could still push it to 4 cents, and we would still be very competitive with most of the market. And
what are the paper straws average cost right now?
Very similar.
So 3.2.
Here's the funny thing: paper is like the paper market is very diverse. So if you're doing I would call this true paper straws. So just to give you a comparison, if I was to give you a spectrum, you have true paper straws, and then you have fake kind of straws. So you have these true paper ones, which is actually paper rolled into a straw. These ones you put into a drink, and lo and behold, within 30 seconds, they've gone soggy. And when you suck on them, they have this weird paper texture and taste on your lips. These are your cheaper straws. Very difficult to beat them on price, but no one likes them. Period. They're not even functional as a straw. While the other side of the spectrum, you have more of a premium level kind of straw. And these ones, they've done something really dirty with them. They charge a premium price for them. No shit, it's a premium product. But the funny thing is, they're not even eco-friendly. Because here's the psycho thing they've done with this. It's a paper straw, but they've wrapped the paper straw around a Pillay plastic straw. There's a plastic straw inside the paper straw.
So it's actually not a paper straw.
No,
it's like the pack. It looks like a paper straw,
yeah,
but
exactly.
It's not paper actually.
It's a plastic straw with a paper straw wrapped around.
Perfect.
and so it's like you're paying for 2 straws now. And I've seen some of the pricing of this. There was one wholesale website I once saw in Australia, for example. They were saying bubble tea straws, paper straws, premium paper straws. They had this Pillay lining. I think it was not a Pillay lining. They did a wax lining inside, which has its own problems, mainly of the toxic variety. And they were selling those at wholesale price. Remember, this is a wholesaling site. A wholesale price for these bubble tea, like 12 mil straws, with a kind of a wax coating premium paper kind of design, 12 cents. 12 cents a straw piece.
Okay.
So that,
we were talking about 4 cents being higher than
and that's the reason why I'm saying there is a massive variance in the pricing and quality of what we're talking about. This is a very hard market to kind of quantify for the most part.
Okay. So it also depends on how you advertise your straws.
Exactly.
And what niche in the market you're selling to. That makes sense. I want to ask something about the books that you read. How many books have you read or heard overall?
To date?
Yeah.
My current book count is sitting at a little over 200 right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. And they were you said before, they're not just like business books, they're everything.
Yeah. So they're not. When I say books, the type of books I'm reading are not these like self-help books that are like, I don't know, what would be a good length that normal people are kind of reading, like maybe 100 pages, 80 pages for these
Okay,
kind of
that's
books.
pretty short, yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe some people are reading like books that are like 200, 300, and they're like, oh, that's a pretty decently long book. The current book that I'm reading right now is International Trade and Finance, the handbook's guide to like monometrics and financing for international trade. And that book is 400 pages long. The book, like the previous longest book, the longest book I've read to date is Man, Economy, and State with the Power of Markets. That massive mouthful. That book, just for record, if you were to read it nonstop, back to front, would take you 50 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is huge.
It's a tome.
Crazy. And you read the whole book?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is it
not once,
is it
twice.
One of the top 3 books you would recommend?
No.
What are the top 3 books you would recommend?
Oh god, depends on what you're trying to aim for. Like, what would be the most interesting to your readers in this case? I could probably spitfire a few things here.
I'm looking for something else than self-help books, because that's what the normal thing would be. Like, you could also go with completely fictional books to get your mind off things as well, which is a good thing. We don't talk about that enough, like being an entrepreneur to actually taking a break. So
exactly. Okay.
Maybe if you have like a really good book that hasn't anything to do with being an entrepreneur, that could be really valuable.
Okay, so how about I just give some pieces from different areas? I will start off with this one. This is from 2009. I would say this book right here contributed to the awakening. And the book was Ultralearning. Ultralearning, is a kind of book that is dedicated to kind of breaking, it's actually really good how they've done it. What Ultralearning is about extraordinary autodidacts and how they made systems or processes to meta learning, to kind of like meta learning is learning how to learn. And it follows a few people who either have extraordinary focus or memory, or like, for example, kind of the person who ran the book. Yeah, Scott Young, that's the name. The guy himself actually did something really unique. He actually self-taught himself the Harvard Business School computer science course, which usually would take you 4 years, and he did in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
So Ultralearning by Scott Young, I would definitely put it as the number one book that completely changed how I kind of like thought about, like, it made me want to learn more, become insatiable about learning, and learning just became its own pleasure in of itself. And I would say that like my kind of desire to be autodidact, for example, an extraordinary one of that came from that book.
So you would say it helped you a lot for studying as well.
Yeah, you'll be surprised on how little I actually need to study. Like, I'm doing so many things at once, it's kind of ridiculous. So, for example, at the university, the average if I wanted to do a single unit, it's recommended to dedicate about 10 hours of study time to a single unit. And usually I'll do like multiple units. If you're doing 4 units at a time, you're a full-time student essentially, right? Because it adds up. That's a full-time job. And like if you're spending 10, 12 hours a week per unit, that's a lot. Now, applying a lot of those techniques to it, I've been able to cut down the learning time to about 3-4 hours.
Wow. Okay. So that's a massive cut.
Yes. So like I can compound, like it wouldn't be uncommon for me to just like go through 2 or 3 weeks worth of work in a single day.
Wow.
So that's how powerful kind of the ultra learning process is about. Is how can you condense information? How can you not really condense information, but how can you quickly divulge a process and specifically remember information? And even with that is like, oh, you probably are not, you're just skimming the work. You're not actually learning. It's like, well, you could look at my grades. I'm getting credits, distinctions, and barely high distinctions in my grade. So I'm not exactly flunking my university degree.
That's good.
So it's working.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend that to it. And I'm just recently finished another book called The Polymath. I'm going to be brushing up on that again, but that was a really good book. Very similar in the way of ultra learning, but that's more dedicated to a specific type of category of what we need to talk about, which is the polymath is it's a Italian kind of it comes from humanism, humanistic philosophy, which is the idea of the universal man, that a man can achieve all things if he simply applied himself to learnings.
Okay.
And the polymath is the embodiment of that. A polymath, in additional terms, is someone who completed or achieved complete mastery of knowledge, human knowledge. However, human knowledge is so vast today. For example, there are more scientists alive today than there has ever been throughout human history. So that's a big kind of issue that just came about from that. So it's like, all right, there's more knowledge than any reasonable person can actually learn. However, if you took the benchmark of what would have been considered a polymath today, to achieve polymathic state, you need to have learned at least 3 distinct fields to mastery. And when we say mastery, we're talking about someone who has a master's level kind of, let's say, education in something. So not like a doctorate, associate, a bachelor's, we're talking about a master's level.
Like a master's degree from university.
Yeah. So
and in 3 different fields, like psychology, biology, and computer science.
Yeah, completely distinct fields with as little overlap as possible.
Okay, so biology and psychology could still be pretty close for that?
Somewhat close, but I would say that's distinct enough for it.
Okay, wow. Okay, but that is a lot of work to put in, not gonna lie.
I found that it's actually kind of interesting because a polymath actually has a lot of distinct advantages over, let's say, a single dedicated expert. For example, if you wanted to become a doctorate, which achieving doctorate status in something is kind of synonymous with achieving expert status in something. To be considered an expert, you need to have spent 10,000 active learning hours learning something. Is usually the going average, per se, and that coincides with how long it takes to achieve your doctorate after you've gone through all that nonsense as well. And the thing is, 10,000 hours just to break into that club. However, to achieve 3 masters, a single master to break into that club is about 3,000 active learning hours. And if you're achieving 3 of them, that's 9,000. You're achieving 3 masters level stuff, and you're shaving off about 1,000 hours. And realistically, you don't need 3 masters. Just achieve 1 master, 3,000, and let's just say achieve bachelor's level in 2 other things. That's 5,000. A bachelor's takes roughly on average about 1,000 hours, on that. So you're looking all up about 5,000 hours to achieve a master's and 2 bachelors from that. So that's half the time of doing a doctorate. And then what you have, you now have a person who is okay, if we're comparing 2 individuals, it's all right, you have an expert and then you have someone who's a master with 2 other kind of side things. It's who's a more valuable person? Is it the person that's hyper specialized in one thing, or the person who actually has cross disciplinary skills? So the thesis that I bring about to it is is built in a priority theory. Time invested to improve skill operates on a diminishing rate of return. And it is that implicitly also implies, because we all instinctively know, because time investment is logarithmic, it takes more and more time to just get slightly better.
Yeah.
We know if that is true, that obviously it is a diminishing rate of return, because that's just flipped. And okay, if it's a diminishing rate of return, we cannot say categorically that someone with 3,000 hours in master, like let's say take a doctor, someone with 10,000 hours of active learning hours, can we and we compare that to the person with 3,000 hours as a master, can we say that the doctor is 3 times better than the master?
No,
I
don't think so.
Because again, the diminishing rate of a curve, the time exponentially increases, but the ability doesn't go exponentially up.
But if you learn 3 complete different fields, you have like a lot more knowledge.
You have a much wider base, and this achieves another point. You get to actually borrow from fields that other people may have missed. If you, let's say, only ever worked within your single field, but let's say you are, you work in one single field, but let's say marketing. And let's say I gave this example to one of my friends, he was in digital marketing, for example. And I said, hey, imagine if you actually if you did engineering, for example. Imagine a marketer who has engineering experience. It's like, how's that useful to me? Well, for starters, you would be probably the best person to talk to if you want to do marketing for engineers, or conveying kind of documentation in a way that is much more understandable. What is marketing but to make something understandable?
It's true. Also, to stick to my example from before, studying biology, psychology, and computer science, you could combine those 3 perfectly as well. Like, even if you want to sell software.
You have computer science, biology, psychology. The first thing that comes to mind is maybe you would probably want to work in something similar to, let's say, Neuralink.
Yeah, as an example. And that's crazy. It really benefits you to have all those 3
You
things.
are specialized. People think there's okay, if I want specializing is where you get the rewards. It's yeah, but just going up one pyramid to the top of one skill set is not the only pyramid that you can climb. That's not the only mountain you could climb. You could climb hyper specialized hills, which is the combination of multiple mountains together, because now you're uniquely qualified to solve not sole problems but cross-functional problems. And to be honest, if you have all this extra knowledge from other fields, you can actually steal concepts from other fields and bring it into your own one to solve a unique problem. And that's a bit of an issue. This is the reason why transdisciplinary fields began, because it's they realized, we could just steal concepts from other sectors to do it, solve our own problems. For example, in economics or in finance and stuff like that, we have behavioral finance born out of stealing from psychology, because we had to realize, we have theories of what people should do in the most rational way, but why do people keep on doing what is not rational? And then we realize, humans don't act always rationally, and that's why behavioral finance became a thing. It's traditional finance is what you ought to do. Behavioral finance is what people actually do.
Yeah, there's a difference. So, do you have one more book for me?
Yeah, I could spill a bunch of ones, but if I was going to shot put this thing, so let's go to that fictional thing you asked us about.
Yeah.
So the fiction book, I love Brandon Sanderson's works, hands down. I think he's a masterclass in world building. While I know Mistborn is the recommended book to start with to kind of understand Brandon Sanderson's kind of writing style and how he world builds, and it's probably the easiest book to get into, I'm personally very biased to Way of Kings. I love this Way of Kings, which is part of the
Way of Kings.
Yeah, the Way of Kings, which is part of the Stormlight Archive series. There's currently 4 books. There's a 5th one coming around. And it's a very long book. It's 40, 50 hours, each one of these books. But it's an epic, fantasy. It's beautiful. I'm not going to spoil anything. It's just, you have to read it. It's actually gorgeous.
Oh, wow, that sounds good. Especially if you just want to relax in the evening and get your mind off things.
The final 2 ones I'll probably share on this kind of front. I'll give two things. It would be economics in one lesson. You need to understand why stuff works, because commerce is how we do business and how we operate. And and the problem is a lot of people just don't are swayed to really shit opinions. Or let's say politicians, for example, promising things that are just never going to work. And it's it sounds good on paper, but you never, if you actually walked through the economic question of it, it just makes no sense. And then you end up with, people being voted in, they do all these policies. It will never, they either can't work it and then it's a failed promise, or they do it and then, makes things worse. And it's why does it make things worse? It's just learn a little bit of economics. And honestly, the best book I would recommend on this subject was Basic Economics, or the shorter book of similar name would be Economics in One Lesson.
Yeah, that's good. And what's the last one?
This is going to be the most spicy one.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm excited.
Democracy, the God That Failed by Hans-Hermann.
That's powerful.
This book will widen some people's eyes. If anyone's going to read any chapter of this book, at least read the first chapter. Read it, understand it, and realize the implications of that first chapter. Because the first chapter in there is on time preference. I've already explained this concept to a few people, and it really opened eyes of okay, so that's why people act the way they do.
I'll put those are 5 books, I think. I'll put all 5 books into the description. So we have Ultralearning, the Polymath, Economics in One Lesson, Democracy, the God That Failed, and then to get your mind off things, Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I'll say we wrap it up here. And that's the pod.